What's going on, people of YouTube? Welcome back to the Purpose Lens Photo and Media YouTube channel. I'm Steven, and if this is your first time being here, welcome. It's good to have you here. That's something like a lot of the new, like the stores say when you come in. But anyway, thank you for coming in. I want you to go ahead and like and subscribe. And the reason why is because when you like and subscribe, then you get to see my videos and you get to be notified when there's new stuff coming. And the reason why is because if you want to learn how to do video, if you want to know what behind the scenes is actually like when you start shooting, this is going to be the place. I'm going to do gear and all of that other stuff too, but I want you to have a place to where when you come, you know, and it's your first shoot that you're going to do, you know what to expect because you've watched this channel. But anyway, we have been going strong on this series of shooting a wedding solo, and the title of the video has been, Can You Shoot a Wedding Video Solo? And again, the answer is yes. This is the third time, well, more than that, but this is the third video where I'm saying, yes, you can shoot a wedding video by yourself. Today, we're going to talk about gear. This is probably one of the hottest topics when you look at photography or videography, whether you're trying to start a YouTube channel, whether you want to be a photographer, whatever it is that has to do with photography and videography. This is one of the main questions that people ask. What kind of gear should I use? So today, I'm going to go over what you need to shoot a wedding. So stick around. We'll be right back with you in just a second. Yes. So welcome everybody back to part 3 of our series, Can You Shoot a Wedding Video Solo? Again, the answer is yes. I'm going to keep saying that over and over just to let you guys know that it is possible, yes, to shoot a wedding video by yourself. But there are some things that you're going to need to know. And today we're going to talk about gear. The reason we need to talk about gear is because without gear, you can't shoot a wedding. This is kind of obvious. So we're just going to go ahead and go through with it. So one of the first things I want to say before I get started with gear is, number one, the key to gear in shooting a wedding and really any type of video that you're shooting or photography that you're doing is to keep it simple. Folks, I can't stress that enough. Keeping it simple is going to be the thing that's going to allow you to focus on what you're shooting and not necessarily what you're shooting it with. Does gear matter? Yes, I'm answering that question. Gear does matter, but you don't want to overdo it and you don't want to be in a situation to where you have more gear than what you know how to do with and more gear than what you need, especially in situations like a wedding, because we're going to talk about it and get into it. So the first point I want to bring out in this video of Can You Shoot a Wedding Video Solo Gear Edition, I'm going to say, is you need a camera. That's kind of obvious. So the popular cameras right now are mirrorless cameras. And basically what that means is it's just like your cell phone. So image comes through the lens and then there's something called a sensor that the image is focused onto, and then it gets processed and put onto your SD card or whatever type of media you have. And that's really it. Now, some people may still shoot with DSLR cameras. A DSLR is basically the same thing, except there's a little mirror that flips up in between it, and you're looking through something called a pen to prism when you're taking photos. But that's the technical stuff. I just want to get that out of the way. But basically, when it comes to shooting a wedding video, what you want to do is get a camera that is lightweight. There are many cameras out here. A lot of the mirrorless cameras are going to be lighter weight, smaller cameras. And the reason why you want to get a smaller camera is because weddings take a long time. You're typically going to be there from 4 to 8 hours, sometimes even longer than that. It could even be a 12-hour day. If you're doing an Indian wedding or something like that, this is over the course of 3 days. So you want to have a light rig. You don't want to have a heavy camera that has all this bulk to it. So that's the number one thing I want to say is you want to have a camera that is lightweight. What camera that is, that's up to you. I'm not going to get into all the details of what kind of camera you should use. It's totally up to you. But I will say whatever camera it is, you want to make sure that it's lightweight and compact. Now, I can tell you about some cameras that are good. I'm not going to tell you should get these cameras, but one of the cameras that I use is a Sony a6400. Now, the reason why I like this camera is because it's small, it's compact, it doesn't take up a lot of weight, it's good on battery life, it's got good audio, it's got great autofocus actually. You got good lens selection, and it's very, very, very versatile, meaning I can go in and out of different situations. I can flip through settings really quickly, and it gets the job done. I don't need anything bigger. I don't need anything smaller. It's the perfect size for me. Now, that may not be what other people use, but I can tell you it's a great camera for what I do. And I've used it on other shoots too, not just wedding. So the Sony a6400, I'm gonna have a video about that camera, a more in-depth review as to why I think it's a great camera. But for now, we'll just go with that. That Sony a6400 is a great camera. So that is part of what I want to talk about when it comes to camera. The other things I want to talk about, or the other thing I want to talk about is, okay, so when you shoot a wedding, if you've ever shot one before, if you haven't shot one thing you want to realize is that accidents happen. Either it is going to happen to you or it already has happened to you. And if it hasn't, it's literally just a matter of time before something happens to you. What do I mean when I say something happens to you? What I'm saying is you may get in a situation to where you drop your camera. That's the worst thing that can happen. Well, not the worst thing, because you could die, but it's one of the worst things that could happen is if you drop your camera. You wouldn't want that to happen, because if you drop your camera and you only have that one camera, you're done. You can't shoot the wedding anymore unless you pull out your cell phone or something like that. And hopefully you can get some good footage on that. But ideally, you want to have two cameras if possible. Now, some people think you should have two SD cards, which that's great. But my thing is this, if you have two SD cards and you drop your camera, it doesn't matter. You're done. So I would actually go for two camera bodies with separate SD cards. And then that way, if you have a problem with one camera, you have a whole new camera to deal with it. Because my thing is, more than likely, if you have a problem with the camera writing to the card, there's either going to be an issue with that card or the camera. And in a situation like a wedding, you're going to want to have a whole different system that you switch to, so you're not worried about any problems and you can sort that stuff out later. So I am a fan of two camera bodies versus one camera body with a dual card slot. Now, there may be a lot of debate over that, but that's what I like to do. I've never had an issue with cards yet. I'll put it that way. There are a lot of techniques that you can use to make sure that, you know, your cards last long, get high quality cards and things like that. But that is it for cameras. The second one I want to talk about is the lens. Now, the lens is very important. One of the most popular focal lengths, and a focal length, if you don't know what that is just how far the lens is going to reach when you're recording your video. So a telephoto lens is going to have a higher number, like 200 millimeter is going to be a long or telephoto length. Something like a 24 millimeter is going to be a shorter. And the lower your number is, the wider your field of view is going to be. And the higher the number, the more narrow your field of view is going to be. So typically for weddings, you want to have something between like a 24 to 70. Now, in a crop sensor camera, which is what an a6400 is, you'll have to do the math. I believe it's a 1.4 crop. So you're going to have to get a different, you're going to have to look at your lenses a little bit differently. But one of the lenses I'll recommend for the a6400 that's great with weddings is the 18 to 105 f4. Now, a lot of people may say f4, that's not a, you can't go in low light. You're right, you can't go in low lights. But we're going to talk about lights here in just a minute. So that's what I recommend for a lens, at least one lens. It's the 18 to 105 f4 Sony lens. It's got great stability, it's got great autofocus, and it's a very versatile lens, very, very versatile. And another lens that I'll recommend, or there's a trio of lenses, these are the Sigma lenses. The Sigma lenses are some great lenses to look at. So that is the lens portion of this. And I'm moving pretty quickly through this because I don't think gear is as important as it's been made to be. So I'm gonna go through these pretty quickly. Okay, this one's gonna be an obvious one. A tripod or a monopod. Now, if this is your first time doing a wedding, one thing you're gonna realize is even if you have a lightweight camera, you're going to need to be able to somehow steady that camera or hold that camera for an extended amount of time. Even if it's a light setup, it can get heavy over time. Even something as light as a A6400 with the 18-105, if you hold that for long enough, you're gonna start to feel the weight of that camera. And once you do that, you're gonna start getting shaky. You're not gonna be able to hold your focus. So what you're gonna wanna do is have some form of, or some type of device that allows you to take the weight off your arms. And one of the best things, in my opinion, is going to be a monopod. Now, a monopod is sort of like a tripod, but it's a little bit more versatile. Actually, it's a lot more versatile. You can put your camera on this monopod, and you can see it has 3 little feet at the bottom here. And those little feet allow you to be able to just kind of tilt it back and forth. I had another one that I tried out, and it just had 1 foot at the end, and it kind of slid around on certain surfaces. But these 3 feet actually make it really solid, and it allows you to lean. And if you're brave enough, you can actually let it go and let it stand up for a minute. But that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you to do that. If in a quick pinch, if you just need to reach over and grab something, come back, it works out great. So a monopod is something that you definitely want to have with you at a wedding. The other great thing about a monopod is once you mount your camera to it and it's lightweight, when you're at a reception and you want to get a shot like top down, what you can do is just pick that monopod up and lean it over the crowd. If you want to put a ball head on that, you can, or a different type of pan head on top of that monopod, that works great too. But I would strongly recommend a monopod. The other thing about a monopod is it's telescopic, which means it can raise and lower its height. So if you're a tall person, you can raise it so that the camera is eye level with you. If you're a shorter person, you can lower it down as well. So guys, get a monopod. A tripod is also helpful too. If you're gonna have a camera that's just sitting there locked off, and that's gonna be your safety or whatever, tripods are great for that. The only downside about a tripod though, is that they generally take up a lot of space, and because they need to have a wide stance. And if you have space for it, then great. But typically at weddings, it's going to be a little bit hard to find a spot where somebody won't kick it, knock it over, that sort of thing, unless you have someone manning it. But again, these videos are about, can you do it solo? So if you want to set up a tripod, go ahead and do that, but just make sure it's in a place where nobody's going to kick it. And these are in no particular order, so if it doesn't make sense, I apologize. You can skip down here. That's another thing I wanted to tell you. You guys, if you look down here at the bottom, you see these little chunks right here. These chunks will allow you to skip to certain sections. So if you want to go back, if you want to review something, click the sections here. And then if you look in the description, I'll tell you as well what each section is. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. So moving along, batteries. So batteries are very important. And it's like, okay, of course we know you need batteries, but you'd be surprised when you're trying to get everything together. This is one of the things that you may forget, but it's important to have more batteries than what you need. When I go to a wedding, I typically take about 15 to 20 batteries with me. Now, obviously I won't use that many, but my thing is this: if something happens to some of the batteries where I drop them in water or any unforeseen thing happens, I would rather have too many batteries than not enough. So especially with this A6400, the batteries are not that big. I can usually get about an hour piece out of each battery. So in a day, I may go through about 8 batteries, to be honest with you. That's kind of typical if you're going to be shooting the whole time, like just locked off and shooting the entire ceremony. But if you're going in chunks, it may last you almost a whole day. You may go to 2 or 3 battery changes, all depends on your shooting style, but just make sure you take more than enough batteries. And another note on batteries, I would always recommend, unless you've had good luck with them, stick to the manufacturer batteries. Some of those batteries out there are good, but I have found with Sony, if I stick with the Sony battery, they're always reliable. I've gotten several different brands of batteries. I'm not going to name the brands, but on my camera would tell me I have like 70% left. And then 2 minutes later, it will go down to 50. And then another 2 minutes later, it would be at 30. And it would just die really quickly. And then sometimes it would just die at 20 and the camera would just shut off. So I never had that issue with Sony batteries. I've always taken care of my batteries. So just a word to you guys, if you're going to be buying extra batteries, which you should, I personally would recommend the Sony batteries. Save up the money if you can't. A wedding is not a situation to where you want to have a battery fail on you. I'm not saying a Sony battery can't fail, but the likelihood of them failing, in my experience, is pretty low compared to another company. So that's my advice for batteries. So again, people, these things are based on my experience, and these are things that have worked for me over the years. So take that how you want to take it. So the next thing, which is another obvious one, is a bag. So you have all this gear, you're gonna have mics, you're gonna have cameras, you're gonna have batteries, you're gonna have lenses, you're gonna have all these things that you're gonna need to carry around with you, but you need something to carry them in. You could just throw them all in a trash bag and be done with it, do it the cheap way, but I wouldn't not recommend that because things are gonna get banged around. So the bag that I have here is a low pro bag. I've had this bag for a few years here. I've never had an issue with it. It actually has a rain jacket that you can pull over it in case the weather starts to get crazy. So I love this bag because you can rearrange the compartments inside of here and you can do it tailored to exactly how you want it to be. I can fit everything in here. You can see my lenses are in here, my microphones are in here, my camera bodies are in here, even my gimbal breaks down into this bag here. So again, this is one of the best bags for me. There are other bags out there that you can look at and that you can test out. I would recommend, going to a camera store near you if you have one and trying them on, see how they fit. Take your gear with you and see if, it's gonna fit what you need. That I am a big fan of trying things out before you buy. Please try before you buy. Even if you read reviews on things, if you can, try it before you buy it because everybody's experience is going to be different. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. But a bag is a necessity that you're gonna have to have. Another thing that I have that has come in really handy along with my bag are these little carrying cases for my SD cards and little carrying cases for my ND filters. And these little cases allow you to separate little odds and ends from the rest of your stuff because sometimes you get in this, you're gonna have to have organization. That's something you're definitely gonna have to have if you're shooting any type of video, especially wedding videos. If you're reaching for something, you need something really quick, you need to know right where it is, you need to go right to it. And sometimes these little bags can help you organize that so you're not just having things all over the way. So I recommend a main bag that you have, but within that bag, you should have smaller compartments or other smaller bags or little totes that you can put things in. And this SD card thing is great. And what I may do is do a whole separate video on just the little odds and ends and little bags and things like that that I use that are really, really helpful. So I just want to move right along because there's a lot in gear. I'm not going to stay long here. But again, people, remember to like, share, and subscribe to this video. This is free information I'm giving you. This is free game. It doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is click like, subscribe. And the reason I keep saying this is because I really want you guys to understand that this is doable. This is something you can do. If you have set your heart on videography or photography, start today, start as soon as you can. And these tips here are to take the butterflies away so that you know what to expect. I'm the type person to where if I'm going to do something that I've never done before and it's a big thing, I like to know what to expect. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So that's why I don't want to spend too much time on gear, but I want to let you know what you need so that you can be successful. So moving right along, lighting. So folks, this is something that you're gonna have to learn really good. If you wanna have good video production, if you wanna have good photos, you have to know lighting. Of course, you have to know the triangle, the exposure triangle that they call it, which is your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed. These three things affect the exposure or the amount of light that your camera is getting. That has to do with the overall makeup of your picture. If a picture is all white and blown out like this, that means you're overexposed. If a picture is dark like this, that means you're underexposed. So in order to get your exposure correct or to your liking, you have to know lighting. This is not something you can skimp on. This is not something that you can just grab a light, throw it up, and expect it to look good. It may happen by luck or by chance, but if you want a consistent flow with your work, you're going to have to know lighting. So folks, there's a lot of different types of lights to get out there, so I'm not going to get into it. One of the lights that I use though is these Dracast lights. These are really good. I can throw these batteries in here and they last for about 5 hours. And I have 3 of these. I have other lights as well, but these are pretty good because they're lightweight, they're thin, as you can see. I can throw them up on their tripods that they come with. I can run them with a power cord or without a power cord. And the thing about that is it makes it so they're really, really portable. So I can throw these up on the dance floor, backlight everybody, or I can move them around to where I need them. And the good thing about these is you can put gels in these lights, which means you can change the colors of these lights, which is a cool thing to be able to do. It's not something you have to do, but to know that you have that ability there is great. So these lights, and I'll put all of the information down here to these lights. The only thing I don't like about these lights is they don't have a battery indicator. And that's the only thing that I really don't like about these lights. But what I do is when I'm using them, I just make sure that I charge the batteries up a day before or wherever, so that I know I'm on a full charge. Then that way I know my lights are going to last me all day. And the good thing again is that if for some reason they don't, I always have the power cord that I can plug in. So that brings me to my next one. The next thing you want to make sure you bring is an extension cord, because things happen. The batteries may fail, but you always want to be ready just in case. Again, the goal is to pack as light as you can, but have everything that you need, because you don't want to be responsible for dragging all this stuff around, because it's hard to find a place to put all of this stuff, and it's difficult to keep track of everything at the end of the day. It's nothing like when you're tired and you're at the end of the day and you're putting everything away and you can't find something, or you get home the next day, or you get home that night, or it could be the next day, and you wake up only to find that you left something, and now you're trying to go back to the venue and grab a lens or whatever that you left. So again, I'm trying to minimize your bag and to use as little as you can to get the job done. Remember, keep it simple. That's the main goal for this thing. So moving on, kind of back to the camera type stuff. So one of the things you're going to want to have is an ND filter. Now, if you don't know what an ND filter is, basically ND filter stands for neutral density filter. A picture like this, when you go outside on a sunny day, it's really bright, right? So you throw on a pair of sunglasses. That's basically all an ND filter does, is it cuts down on the amount of light altogether that's coming through your camera lens. And the reason why you may want this is if you're going to be shooting cinematic type wedding stuff, typically you're going to be shooting at 24 frames per second. Your shutter speed is going to be double that. So you're going to be at 1/50 roughly. So it really is 48, but 1/50 is where you're going to be. So if you don't know, that's a lot of light that's coming into your camera. Even if you're at the ISO 100, which on some cameras, that's the lowest you can go. Some are 50. So if you're at ISO 50 or 100 and it's still too bright, what some people may do is crank up their aperture and actually stop it down to like f22. But when you do that, or f16, and you start to go way up, everything looks focused, and that doesn't look cinematic. But if you want that separation from your subject and the background, you're gonna have to shoot in a wider aperture, something like a 1.8 or 1.4 or 2.8. And the only way you can do that in bright sunlight is you need a neutral density or an ND filter to cut down on the light. Now, I would recommend a variable ND filter. And the reason why is because a lot of times if you're outside, especially in a place like Florida, it could be sunny 1 second, then all of a sudden you get clouds that come in. And it's easier just to turn this little ring on the front of your camera to change your exposure instead of messing with all of your settings in your camera, like your ISO and all that stuff. It's a lot easier just to turn the dial and watch your exposure meter, or to watch your histogram to make sure you're not clipping or you're underexposed. So an ND filter is what I would recommend. Now, this is the one I have down here. Again, this isn't a really expensive one. I don't think you need to go really expensive. You just have to make sure that the one you have works for you. So read some reviews on it. If you can test it out before, go ahead and do that. So moving right along, the next one is going to be a lens cleaner. Folks, this is one of the biggest ones on this list, believe it or not. It's nothing like going to your computer after you've shot the video and you're going over the videos and you see this speck that's all through your whole entire video, and you didn't see it because the screen, the viewfinder that you had, or the monitor, the field monitor that you had, can't even say that, monitor, the field monitor that you had didn't show it up. But now you're looking at it on your screen and it seems like that's the only thing you can see. I cannot recommend you guys to have a lens blower or a lens cleaner, both, especially with a mirrorless camera, because if you're changing lenses throughout the day, it's very easy for debris, dust, or anything to get in between the lens and the sensor, and now you have a messed up photo or a messed up video. So I cannot stress to you guys enough how much you need to have a lens blower and a lens cleaner. You can pick one up from Amazon really cheap. I'm gonna put one down here. Really, it doesn't have to be anything expensive, just something that can blow air. Don't try to do it with your mouth, because more than likely you're gonna blow and you're gonna have spit come out, and spit on your sensor is not going to dry correctly. Trust me, I've been there before. So you don't want to try to blow it with your mouth perspective. The blow it with your mouth, you don't want to do that. You want to use a blower. So moving along, so the next one is a stabilizer. Now this is a preference. I personally use a stabilizer. I use the DJI Ronin SC. I had the S before, used it, it was heavy. And this goes again back to lightweight. The reason I chose this is because it's a lighter, smaller gimbal designed for these mirrorless cameras, especially like the Sony a6400, a65, a66, a63, and the a6000. All of these cameras work very well on this gimbal as far as the weight and the lens selections. I've never had an issue with it. So this is something that you want to go with. You know, if you're first starting out, you may not be able to afford it. That's fine. But if you get the 18-105 lens, that is a stabilized lens, so it makes your shots a lot more stable. If you can't afford it, though, you may want to try and rent it. Rent a stabilizer. But that's something I definitely would recommend. I also have the Devin Graham Glide Cam. That's another one. I don't really use that one as much now. I kind of exclusively use the Ronin. Just because I feel like I can do a lot more with it, and it's lighter weight than the Glide Cam. So that's something that you will definitely want to get or invest in as soon as you can, is a stabilizer. So again, folks, I'm hoping that this information is helpful to you. I'm hoping that this information takes away some of the unknown and some of the anxiety that you may have because you have a shoot coming up and you don't know what to expect. But these things that I'm telling you here, I guarantee you, if you follow them, they will make your shoot go 1,000 times better. This is gold that I'm really giving you. This is some real game. It really is. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna push the gear and all of that stuff a lot. I'm just gonna tell you what you really need, because the cameras, gear, camera gear, it's all relatively good. We're in 2021 now, You may have a camera that can do a little bit more, a lens that's a little bit sharper, but honestly, the majority of the cameras that you can buy now, mirrorless, are going to be comparable in quality. You just have to learn to use them. That's my opinion. I really believe that. I don't think these newer cameras are 1,000 times better. They may be a little bit better in certain areas, but my thing is this: if you don't learn to use the camera, if you don't learn how to light, if you don't learn the exposure triangle, if you don't learn when and how to use an ND filter, if you don't know how to get good angles, if you don't know how to edit, if you don't know all these things, a better camera isn't going to make you better, and it also isn't going to make your video or your pictures better. So I just wanted to put that out there. So moving on now, this one may seem a little bit weird, but one of the things, especially if you're going to be doing photography at a wedding, is a camera strap for your hand. I am not a fan of the straps that go around your neck just because they irritate me. Now, that's my personal opinion. They just irritate me. I don't like them. They're swinging around, and it seems like they may bump into something and tear your camera up. So I don't really use camera straps. I don't think, since I bought my camera, I took it off day one and haven't used it. But I just use this little hand strap that you see here. And this allows me to hold the camera really steady. And it just gives it a good grip in my hand, and I can hold on to it, especially when you're talking about shooting all day. You don't want to have something around your neck. What you can also do with this is you can get you a quick release plate and get a belt buckle that just clips it onto your belt. So if you need to put it down for a minute, that's where you can put it. That's what I recommend. This is just, again, my personal opinion on what gear works for me best when I'm shooting a wedding, or even when I'm just shooting other things. All right, moving right along. So the next thing you want to have in your arsenal of gear when you're shooting a wedding solo by yourself with no help is a quick release plate. Folks, I cannot stress to you how important a quick release plate is. This thing actually saved my life. Like, if I didn't have this quick release plate, I probably would be dead. I'm dead serious. Okay, I wouldn't be dead, but I would probably be closer to death because my stress levels would be high. But a quick release plate is something that will literally change your life. So if you're going to be using, let's say you're going to try to stick to one camera, even though you have two, but you're sticking to one because you want to get all of your footage on one, and you're going from your gimbal and then you want to use your monopod. Well, if you were to take this off, your camera off, without a quick release plate, now you have to pull the whole gimbal apart. All of your settings will be changed. Then you have to screw the mounting plate from the monopod onto the bottom of your camera, and then lock it on. And that's gonna take a long time to do. Now, it may take you 3 minutes. Some people may have it down to like a minute or so, or 2 minutes. But this is enough time to miss something important. 2 minutes in a wedding, that's like 2 hours. Because so much stuff can happen really quickly in that small amount of time. But what a quick release plate will do is allow you literally in seconds to unsnap from your gimbal and go to your monopod, and then straight from your monopod back to your gimbal or to your tripod. So I cannot recommend this thing enough. Get yourself a few of these quick release plates and mount them on everything that has a 1/4-20 connection on the bottom. So both of your cameras should have them. If you have flashes, they can have them too. If you have field monitors, they can have them. If you have microphones, I just think they're great because it allows you to interchange things really, really quickly without a lot of time in between. And again, that's the name of the game, is we want to reduce the amount of time that it takes you. We want to reduce the weight and the size of all the gear that you need to take. So the key here is keep it simple. Again, keep it simple. All right, moving right along. If you're still watching this, I hope you subscribe, and I hope you are getting some good information, some good advice from this video. Again, I have racked my brain to bring you this stuff, folks. This is top-notch, high-quality material right here. You're not gonna find this everywhere. There's very few places where you're gonna find the stuff that I'm telling you. This is the real world. This is what to expect when you actually shoot. What you typically see on YouTube is the finished product, but what you don't see is what goes into it to make that the finished product. And a lot of what goes into this is knowledge, time, understanding of your gear, understanding of how to light, being prepared, not packing too light, knowing how to capture the shot. And the most important thing is how to duplicate this over and over and over and over again so that you can satisfy your client. So again, people, make sure you subscribe and like this video and share it with people because they may need it too. Again, this is free game that I'm giving you. Moving right along, the next thing on our list of gear that you definitely want to take with you is gaff tape. Now, what is gaff tape? Gaff tape is this black stretchy tape, and it allows you to tape things down. That's really it. The good thing about gaff tape though is it doesn't stick. Like some tape, like duct tape, will leave residue behind. Well, gaff tape doesn't do that. And the biggest advantage to me with gaff tape is how it stretches. It's stretchy nature. This helps if you need to put some cords on the floor. It actually stretches over the cords and it pins the cords down on the floor really nice and neat so that you don't leave residue and that people don't trip. Gaff tape, there's so many different uses for this stuff. And if you have some, you'll love it when you need to do something. It may be to tape a mic cord down or to secure something. This is just like a Swiss Army knife with all the different things it can do. So make sure you get yourself some gaff tape. It's a little bit expensive, but it's one of those things where you'd rather spend a little bit of money to have it and then just be done with it versus not having it at all. So that is the last one as far as the camera gear. Now, I want to get into audio briefly, but I don't want to go too long. So I'm going to try to keep this short. I'm going to keep this brief so that you guys can get this information, apply it, and move on. So audio is its own thing. I almost want to separate it from the video. The reason why is because audio needs to be treated with such high priority that it's probably one of the first things you want to do when you get to the venues. You want to check out your audio situation. You want to meet with the guy who's going to be running the sound. You want to talk to your bride and groom. You want to place the mic on them in certain ways so that it doesn't create a rustling sound, so that you get crisp, clear, reliable, usable sound when you go to edit. There's nothing like this beautiful video that's stabilized. You use the correct lens. Your lenses are clean. You didn't get burned out when you were there. You ate. You did all of these things that you're supposed to do, but you did not get good audio. One of the worst things in the world is to not capture audio, either at all or have bad audio. Now, a lot of people will just throw music over that, and if that works for you, that works for you. But I am more of a fan of the narrative where people are talking and you can hear their story or wherever it may be. But good, clean, crisp, clear audio is a must if you want to be able to have a professional look and sound and high quality to your video. So I cannot stress that enough. So with audio, one of the first things you're going to want to do is have a good microphone. Now, it doesn't have to be a top of the line microphone, but what it does have to be is placed correctly, and it needs to be in a position to where it's not going to get bumped, brushed up against. If you do that, if you mic up the person correctly, the mic, again, doesn't have to be the best, but if you capture good sound, you can always go back and EQ it and tweak it later. So again, folks, this comes into the skill area of things. This is something that you're going to have to work on. You're going to have to hone your skills in this, and it's going to take time. Audio is a difficult thing to deal with. It's not impossible, but if you want good sound, good quality sound, you're going to have to take some time to get to know what it is and how to get the best sound. Placing of the microphone and having a good microphone is a part of it, but there's a whole nother suite of things that you're gonna have to do. So I won't get into that now, that's for another video. But what I will say is you wanna have some different options when it comes to audio. So one of the first ones is a lavalier mic. A lavalier mic is basically a mic that clips onto a person's body. So this can be under a hat, and I probably won't be wearing a hat at a wedding, but hey, you never know. It could be that kind of wedding. It could be under a lapel, it could be under a collar, it could be under or in between shirt buttons, it could be on the bride, it could be many different places. So I may do a video on sound and talk about how to place the mic and that sort of thing, but you definitely want to have at least one lav mic. If you have two, that will be the best. Also, you want to get yourself a recorder. Now, I have a Zoom H4n Pro. You can use other ones like Tascams. There's other ones out there, but you definitely want to use a recorder to plug into the actual mixing board at the venue. And the reason why you want to do this is because typically they're going to have microphones and things like that for the officiant. So the pastor, whoever is marrying them, typically will be speaking into a microphone. So if you can capture straight from the board there, that's great. But also you can mic your officiant up as well. It depends on how many mics you have. But in the case of keeping it simple, and in the case of going as lightweight as you can, usually you can get away with just miking up the groom, and he will capture he'll capture his bride himself and the officiant. But if you want to be safe, you can always go with 2. I recommend these Tascam microphones, these labs. The reason why these are special is because they actually have a built-in recorder on the inside of these mics. So that makes it great. You don't have to worry about any wireless. You don't have to worry about interference. But the only thing with these is you want to check your levels before. So with these, there's a headphone jack on the side. You can plug your headphones in, monitor it, see where your levels are, and then hit record. And this is one of the best things about this thing. You can lock it, and once you lock it, they can push these buttons. It's not going to stop the recording. So I recommend these Tascams, and I'm going to put them right down here. These are some great devices. And the other thing I like about these is the different colors. You have a black one for the groom and a white one for the bride. You can also get like a garter. That's what this thing is. It goes around her thigh, and you can slide the Tascam recorder right down in there if you're having a hard time finding where to put the recorder itself. These aren't that big, so you may be able to get away with it in certain spots. I typically would drop it down into the groom's suit pocket on the inside, and that works well. I haven't had any issues like that. So now moving on to the H4n Pro, what you want to have is a couple cables. You want to have an XLR cable and 1/4 inch cable, and these will allow you to plug into the mixer. And what you want to ask for is an aux out. I want to say that you really need to get familiar with boards, with soundboards, and how they work. And the reason why, and I hate to say this, but it's just the truth, is covering your behind, basically. I've been to places before, not weddings, but I've been to a place before, a few places before, to where I was there to do a shoot, and I needed to get an aux out of the board into my camera or into my recorder. And I got there, and the guy that they hired had a really nice board, but it was a brand new board, and he wasn't familiar with it. So because I understood how boards work, I was able to go in and assign an aux out to that specific output that I was looking for. And he didn't know how to do that. So this is where your skill level and your knowledge of things really comes in handy. You know, when you're dealing with photography or videography, you can't just learn videography and photography. You've got to learn audio, and you've got to venture out, because there's other things that pour into video that's going to make your video a higher quality if you know these things and if you know what to look out for. So again, folks, this is another reason to subscribe, because I'm giving you game right now. I'm helping you out. I am telling you industry secrets. I don't know if they're secrets, but I'm telling you things that I ran into, that if someone had told me these things, I probably would have not panicked, and I probably would have saved probably at least 1.5 years of my life from stressing out. So anyway, that is that for audio. So one last thing with audio, I actually will rewind and say this. So when you're recording audio, even though you have your lav microphone, even though you have your Zoom or whatever digital recorder you decide to use, one thing you want to do is set up your camera, the audio microphone on that, make sure it's active and that it's set properly. The reason why you want to do that is it's called scratch audio. And what it allows you to do is later, when you come to edit your video and post, you can sync up the sounds. Typically on film sets, they'll have a clapper and they'll go, and what that will do is it will give them a visual cue of when that clip starts, and then also when you go into your editor, it'll give you a spike in your waveform, is what it's called. But in a wedding, you can't clap. You can't say, sync. You can't do any of that stuff. So what you want to do is you have to go by the audio in your camera and sync that up with the audio on your recorder and on your lavalier microphone. So I cannot stress that enough. That is another game-changing piece of advice, folks, to capture scratch audio. That can save you a lot of time. I have forgot to enable the mic on my camera a few times before, and there's nothing like sitting there trying to find where the lips are and trying to sync up the words with where their lips are. I'm not a lip reader, so it's very, very, very difficult to do. And then you'll notice it may just be a millisecond ahead or a millisecond behind. Folks, just enable the microphone on your camera as scratch audio so that you can sync it up later in post. So listen, people, I hope this video on gear has been helpful to you in this series of Can You Shoot a Wedding Video Solo. I know that this is a long video. I tried to go as quickly as I can and to give you as much solid information. Again, remember to hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Stick around because we're gonna have a lot more videos to come. And what I wanna try to do is help you if you're starting out, if you're a beginner, and if you don't know what to expect, I'm gonna help you all the way because there are a lot of pieces that has taken me years to learn, and I wanna share that with you. So again, thank you for watching and stay tuned. We have much more to come. All right, I'll holler at y'all later. I'm out, peace.
Be sure and like and subscribe.